And we're getting ready.
Do you want us to back up at all, Alan, or are we okay?
So I think I've written notes for the, oops, there we go. Do you mind if we just clarify the roll call real quick? And sorry for this interruption again.
No problem. So we're in the tree board meeting of December 2nd. Our roll call absent are Carrie Bush, Gregory Beal, and Christine Lovell. Lars Langberg, Ed Luthen, and Ron Harry are all in attendance.
All right, thank you for that. And I just want to double check one other item, just making sure if we had minutes this week or not, because I know we didn't discuss it, but.
Oh, you know, the other thing I don't think I did was, do we have any comments from the public regarding items not on our agenda? Did we get anything written? I don't see any other.
We did not.
Okay, so just now we'll jump back into our tree removal application. This is item A of our tree board, 652 Pedalum Avenue proposal to remove 11 protected redwoods and 1 unprotected redwood. So we've had.
And just yeah, sorry, I was just going to do a brief summary of it.
Sure.
Applicant's looking to remove 11 protected trees, all redwoods and 1 unprotected redwood. The city arborist recommended that the replacements be 12 trees, that the site can accommodate 12 Pacific wax myrtles of a 15-gallon size, spaced 6 feet apart. And essentially, that's staff's recommendation.
Got it. And our applicant is here and available for any questions. I don't believe we had any questions. Does anybody from the public have any comments on this agenda item?
I had a question for our arborist here.
Okay.
So it's not the first time that we've been asked to remove redwood trees because they're planted in the wrong place. And I think in the report it talks about they're like 25 years old or something. And in this case, they're mostly dealing with, it seems like they're mostly disrupting a parking lot, but I guess there's some worry they're also going to disrupt the foundation of the neighboring house. But it just feels to me I know that trees get planted in the wrong place, but is there not any way to save some of these trees? That's kind of my question. Is it just you got to cut them down, or you got to deal with all the consequences?
That's a good question. Is this, I imagine that was directed toward me, correct?
That's correct, Fred, yes.
You know, it's sort of it's a matrix, and part of it is that you're looking to the future, and these trees will continually get larger. The species is capable of a lot more growth. So you take what already is occurring, and you know that's going to get exponentially worse at some point. So it's sort of like you're seeing the fork in the road. But some mitigation options would be, you know, root severance or root barriers. The challenge with that is then you destabilize the tree, and it's an immeasurable concept. So you're worried about then toppling risk, which could get higher. And then given the fact that they're tall structures, and they would definitely have the ability and the geometry to, you know, strike a parked vehicle or a pedestrian, it's kind of one of those slippery slopes. Had they been, you know, a little more remote, maybe root severance and a slightly elevated risk for failure might be tolerable. I think in this circumstance, it isn't something that the property owner wants to take the risk of doing. So in the effort to, you know, minimize infrastructure damage that's already started and which will only get worse with time, it's the unfortunate option that seems the best at the moment.
Okay. And so the Pacific wax myrtle get planted in this same location, and in 20 years, do we have the same problem?
Much smaller species, so you should not expect anything remotely close. They're not, all woody plants have the potential to cause root problems, but yeah, wax myrtles are definitely not something that's going to give you the grief that a coastal redwood has the potential for.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's see. Christine just joined us as well. Welcome, Christine. Glad you're here. We're just we're on item A of the tree board agenda, asking questions of our applicant. Do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, I do not.
All right, Ron, any questions?
Well, maybe I should save my questions until we review this, okay?
That sounds good. And we already asked, nobody from the public had any comments or questions. So let's bring this back to the board for deliberation. Let's see. So we've got, yeah, I think I understand kind of Laura's line of questioning. We've got 4 nice mature trees kind of hitting their stride, or not 4, 12. And it seems like a shame to cut them down, but on the other hand, we know what's on the future horizon. So, somebody,
Oh,
Feedback.
feedback. Let's see, Ron, you had some thoughts. Why don't we start with you?
okay, thanks. I went over there and walked the property.
Mhm.
You know, obviously, again, these are the wrong tree for the wrong place. I mean, that's obvious. They never should have been there in the first place. You know, you've got one side, you've got the pavement. Down below it, you have a small runoff ditch on the downhill side, which most likely where the roots are headed. The roots are headed towards the houses, mainly downhill or whatever from there. I doubt whether many of the roots will be heading underneath the concrete because the water has been stopped at that point. I guess my point here is I don't really see any reason for any trees here at all. You know, a good hedge would work better. It's in between a rock and a hard place, and I guess I'm getting a little tired of myrtles being suggested we're going to be Myrtle Town pretty soon. So my suggestion would be, I don't think there really needs to be any trees, and they sure don't need to be 12 more trees there. There's nothing wrong with the certain spots in the city, there are no trees at all. And this is probably one of them. Another place I remember back a year ago behind, it was behind the Flavors restaurant. There was a tree there that was dead that was surrounded by concrete, and that's why it died. And frankly, there should have been no tree planted there because it would have died again. So my suggestion is leave it up to, I don't think we should require any trees there at all. That's my opinion. But, you know, if they want to, go ahead.
Well, and I think we have
How's that for a street workout?
of the tree ordinance, you know, asks for replacements when someone takes a tree out. So that's part of the equation here too, is that we kind of have
Can't we override that? Can we override that?
I think we can override that, and we can have them pay an in lieu of fee if they go below the threshold for replacement.
Well, money talks here, but there really doesn't need to be trees there at all, in my opinion.
Ron, what about for shading for the houses that are to the east of there? What would you say about that?
Well, it depends on whether you want shade or sun. You know, that's facing west. It won't block noontime sun at all. Crepe myrtles, I don't think will put up much shade compared to the redwoods at all. I don't know how tall are they at maturity.
Now you're referring to the wax myrtle?
Yes.
I pulled it up as we were speaking. So they're being described as a 2 to 10 meter tall tree. So what are we talking, between 20 feet or so? That sound about right? Am I doing my metric conversion correctly?
But that's going to take 20 years to provide any shade at all. I don't think shade has, or I don't think it'll have much effect at all. Actually, they may want the sun.
So could I step in real quick?
Sure.
So the city does have a requirement for essentially shade trees for parking lots, that there has to be 1 tree for every 5 parking spaces. And I'm currently just trying to get those, that number of parking spaces right now.
How many parking spaces?
There's like 20. I'm looking at the picture of Street View. It's probably like somewhere in the range of 20.
Yeah.
1 per 5?
Correct. And on that side, there's the side with the redwoods, I counted 12.
Uh-huh.
So then you don't need a dozen trees there at all. You're
I'm
way over,
just saying that
way
as a
over the
minimum.
minimum.
Yeah. Now, the properties that are adjacent, they do have structures that are, 5 feet off the property line, something like that. They might actually like some screening between them and a parking lot.
Yeah.
Well, there's that huge fence. Have you seen the fence?
Yeah.
Oops.
That's a good
All right.
6-8 feet tall. They got plenty of visual blockage there.
Yeah.
I just don't like the city requiring something that really isn't necessary.
Hmm.
Understood. Let's see, Christine, any comments?
Yes, I do have comments.
Let's-
So I can see that we have this, it seems like there was a time period where these trees were all planted and they're just not appropriate for the sites anywhere that we find them. So I feel that, the trees can be removed. In terms of replacement, I would like to see, or I think it would be reasonable to replace the number of trees that would provide a healthy environment. So not too many trees crowded together. I mean, I'm not an arborist, so I'm not going to be able to say this many trees, but, we've got this 5 per parking space or 5 parking spaces per tree kind of a standard, and get a tree replacement in there that would grow well in that environment. I disagree with Ron. I think trees are, even in urban environments, I think are essential. And I'd like to see some trees replaced there, maybe not necessarily 12, but I do want to encourage that. This is a difficult situation because we have the in-lieu fee, and I'd like to see some sort of standard with the city where we actually plant trees instead of just take the money. But I'd like to see 12 trees replaced with 12 trees, but not necessarily here. You know what I'm saying? But otherwise, the in-lieu fee. But I can understand planting lesser trees. These trees, they get too crowded. They don't grow well. So I guess in my rambling sort of way, I'm for the removal of the existing trees with the replanting of the appropriate trees that are suggested in a density level that will allow the trees to have an opportunity to grow it healthily, in a healthy manner.
Okay.
I think that the removal, I mean, because I've had this happen to me. When you're a neighboring property and a big tree gets removed, it's a shock. I think probably that it would be nice. I mean, they're going to have to deal with the shock period because they'll have new trees. But if you get a fast-growing tree, you can get the environment back that the neighboring tree imposed onto your property, if this makes sense.
Yeah. All right.
So that's my feeling about it.
Yeah. Thanks, Christine. Lars, what are your thoughts?
I would agree with Christine. I think putting some back, the applicant has suggested 4. So we could take that recommendation, and then the rest is goes to the in lieu fee, which I would assume, maybe I'm wrong, that money gets spent on planting trees in the city. One would
I hope so.
Understanding that that money is earmarked for that purpose.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, I'm looking at the site plan that has numbers 1 through 12 of the ones removed, and then it's got 4 X's, which I assume are the new trees, just even kind of, evenly spaced with more room than the existing ones. I think that, I don't know, that seems pretty good to me.
Yeah, when I was looking at this, I was surprised that, 6-foot spacing, I mean, that, and 12 trees in there, that's basically kind of my wingspan here. That would be to create basically a giant hedge, I think, across that whole border, which maybe is what Becky was thinking. But yeah, 12 seems dense to me, but I'm not, I wish we had Carrie on this one. Because I'm not a tree expert either. But I think trees in that space are a nice thing for that property. I think it softens the edge between that property and the neighbors.
Yeah.
I think it's actually a pretty good place for a row of trees. I guess it's a question of how many, and we did. Yeah, Becky didn't. I'm reading Becky's report again.
Yeah.
Let me just pull this up real quick.
Pacific wax myrtle, small to medium tree that will grow to about 20 feet tall. They're in 15-gallon containers. They may be planted 6 feet apart.
Then it was in I think the last attachment was an email that she said, clarify that it can accommodate up to 12 trees in the space.
There it is. Okay. There's adequate room for 12 new 15-gallon size container trees 6 feet apart to replace the 12 redwoods.
And just for review, this is what the 12 redwoods look like currently. So in theory, if it's 12 wax myrtles, it'd be a similar, spacing and sizing. And sorry, my mouse is very sensitive.
And that might be what Becky was going for, was, okay, now we've got a row of green. Let's replace it with a row of green that just isn't quite as tall and
Less impactful roots.
but it still provides the same function as what's there. That's probably what she was thinking.
And so why is the applicant only proposing 4? I don't know if that's Fred, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so we're working on behalf of the property owner. Since we don't specialize in the install part, they've contacted a landscape designer, I think it's Gill, with Greg Gill Landscape. And it was on recommendation, there was a discussion between the landscape person and the owner of the property. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of insight as to what led to the decision, but I do know that's what we were instructed to notify you of. I'm sorry about the phone. Moving forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
Does that answer your question, Lars?
Yeah, it does.
All right. I didn't know. I didn't want to
Good enough.
how much to give you.
No, that's fine.
Can I make a comment here? Because
Sure.
I'm not against planting trees here. Don't get me wrong. I just think there are certain spots that are excellent for trees and certain places that are not. I think 4 would be fine as far as a whole row of them there. That makes no sense to me in that location at all. And don't forget, you were worried about the neighbors missing that. Of course they will, but those trees won't be substantial height for another 10 or 20 years. So planting myrtles there won't have any effect on that property for quite some time. So it's not, yes, it will be a shocker if they're gone, plus or minus. We don't know whether they like them there or not. I would go, I think 4 is plenty. And I would like to go along with the property owner if that's what they want. And their arborist or landscape architect, if that's what they recommend and they're willing to pay a couple extra bucks, that's what I would say we should do. Also, I'm big on native trees here. And as you know, redwoods are not native in Sebastopol, and neither are myrtles. They come from the East Coast or somewhere. I would like to see some native trees planted here, whatever the hell they were. Amen.
All right. Unfortunately, none of us are tree experts, so I don't know what to say in terms of trees. Well, Ron, would you like to make a motion? Because it sounds like we are all somewhat in agreement on not 12 and maybe a reduced number. It sounds like you and I think Lars mentioned 4. I think Christine might have even mentioned going with the 4. Why don't we throw a motion on the table and see where it goes?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to have the trees removed for obvious reasons and recommend that we go along with the owner of the property and the current arborist or whoever and let them do what they want to do. Is that what you want to hear?
Yeah, so replacement with 4 trees.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Basically, approve as submitted. Okay?
So can we make an amendment now?
You can-
No.
You have to second it first. Huh?
All right, we have a motion. Can we have a second? Any seconds on this motion?
It's not a complete motion.
In what way is it lacking?
The in lieu fee and that whole
Oh.
discussion.
And pay the in lieu of fee, correct, Ron? Is that a,
Yeah, yes.
okay?
Whatever that is.
Okay.
All right. Now, do we have a second now?
I'll second it.
I would just like to, I would like to clarify it. Okay, well, we can do that in discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now, do you have an amendment or clarification, Christine?
A clarification.
Okay,
There are 12 trees proposed to be removed.
yep,
Okay, so we replace 12, but the 12 is essentially 4 trees plus 8 in lieu fees. Correct?
I believe that's correct. Is that correct, Alan?
Yeah.
That's correct. So it'd be an in lieu
Okay.
fee for the remaining, I think it's 18 trees.
Oh,
Would be required to be
Whatever,
replaced.
because the in lieu of fee
2 to 1.
is a 2 to 1, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, so it's an in lieu of fee for the,
8. So they would be required to, if this was a 2 to 1 replacement, they'd be planting 22 trees. If you were to hold them to that.
Right.
If they're planting 4, that means they're paying an in lieu fee of 18 trees.
18 trees. And how much is the in lieu of fee?
correct.
14 trees. There's 11 that are protected that need to be taken down.
Yeah.
4 are being planted there, so that's 7 left over. That's 14 in lieu.
No, but so there's the 11 trees being removed, right? And those are typically replaced in a 2 to 1 ratio.
Oh, okay.
And
And
now
now 22 trees, and
Yeah.
they're planting 4 trees.
So you subtract after you do the doubling.
Gotcha.
I had to do the math like 3 times myself.
Order of operations.
Okay, got it.
All right, so how much is the in lieu of fee per tree?
It's $75 per replacement tree.
Okay,
So in the reports, I had calculated the total replacements being $1,350.
okay. So just for clarification, we are approving as submitted, which would be the removal of 12 trees, planting of 4 trees, and the payment of in lieu of fees for 18 trees totaling $1,350.
One small correction. 11 protected trees. The
11
one
protected trees,
that's
I'm sorry.
too small, I'm just noting that it's being removed.
Thank you for that. Okay.
Mhm.
Everybody in agreement with the motion as we have it?
Yeah.
Any discussion on the motion?
Yes.
I'll just make one point that the Pacific wax myrtle is an evergreen shrub native to the coasts of California, Oregon, and Washington.
Oh, there we go.
I looked it up.
So noted. Any further discussion on the proposal? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor of approval, say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Raising my hand in the darkness. Aye.
that's okay. Vocal works too. All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you to our Fred. Thank you for coming by and representing the applicant.
I appreciate your time. And so I'm going to bow out now if you don't need me any longer.
You're all good to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again.
All right. Let's see. Now that kind of wraps up our tree board portion of our program. So we are going to.
Can I just say one thing final and then I'll shut up?
Yes, sir.
Thanks for passing that. I'm very much in thought of dealing with native trees here, old growth or first growth. But, you know, this is a great example of planted trees. They're in a whole different category as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, humans planted them and humans can remove them if they were planted wrong or diseased. So I have no problem with that. I don't think we just have to plant trees all over the place, frankly. But anyway, that's my opinion. And, you know, I'm very in tune with redwoods for all my thousands of hours at Armstrong. So anyway, that's enough. All right.
All right. Thanks, Ron. All right. So with that, we are going to adjourn our tree board meeting and turn our attention to the design review board. So the design review board will come to order. Alan, do we need a new roll call or can we roll with what we had?
I think we can roll with what we had.
Okay. So all present except for Carrie Bush and Gregory Beal,
We're both excused.
who are both excused. Any additional planning department matters of general interest?
I have no additional updates since the tree board.
Okay. Have we received any comments from the public on items not on our agenda?
I have not received any comments from the public, written or via phone call.
Okay. And then let's move on. Anybody have any conflicts of interest? Hearing none, we'll move on to our regular agenda item for 110 North Main Street Portico Restaurant.
All right.
Can we have
So,
staff, please?
Oh, yep. So this is an application requesting to relocate the storefront windows and door back approximately 11.5 feet from where they currently stand. So it's moving towards the restaurant. This would result in approximately a 240 square foot covered patio in order to accommodate an outdoor dining area. The applicant kind of came to us as requesting this as somewhat of an emergency situation a little while ago, and we've been working with them trying to push this through. They're basically concerned that without any outdoor dining, they're having issues with, I guess, surviving is the best way of putting it. So in this review, staff has looked into it, and the project is consistent with the development standards and the requirements. And an outdoor patio in the frontage can contribute to a more active street frontage. So in general, staff is supportive of the project and recommends approval. The applicant does not appear to be here currently.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any questions of Alan? Seeing none, our applicant is not here. This looks like a fairly straightforward one to me. Any discussion from board members? Anybody have any issues?
I just want to say that I really support this. I'm supportive of anything that we can do to help these businesses through this time, and I think this is pretty straightforward.
I totally agree. I think that building is almost kind of crying out for this as well. It's got a slightly recessed existing storefront. Might as well push it back and make some use of some patio space. And I think the more outdoor patio space we can get on Main Street, the better.
There's no parklet in front of this building, is there? There's none there, right?
The parklet is further north.
Down the way, yeah, but there's for some reason not one there in front of their restaurant.
Sorry to interrupt. I think the issue with that was that it conflicted with the turning lane. I think there was discussion initially to have it in front of them.
Oh, right, yeah.
So you can't put one there legally anyway.
Yeah, essentially it would conflict with that right turn onto Sebastopol.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is awesome. It's a radical approach to getting some outdoor dining, like to actually just think of moving the storefront back. It's not that difficult, but what a great idea. We have such narrow sidewalks in this town. Like any way we can widen them, that's great.
Yeah. I agree. Somebody like to make a motion for approval?
I will make a motion to approve the application as submitted.
All right, we have a motion. How about a second?
Sure, I'll second it.
Whatever.
All right. We have a motion by Christine, a second by Lars. Any further discussion?
The
Seeing none, let's call the question. All in favor, please raise hand and vocalize. Aye.
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 All right, motion passes unanimously.
That was quick.
That was an easy one. Actually, both of these were easy ones.
Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our agenda items. So we will adjourn to our meeting of next Wednesday, the 9th at 4 p.m.
Correct.
Great.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Night.
See you next week.
Bye.
Next week.
Bye.